Good afternoon on what is a grey, cold and overcast day. It is Tuesday the 25th of January. I'm back in the Reading Nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a big pile of parcels to get through, and I'm going to continue digging into this one. From this one I have already pulled out the One Ring starter set. So the next thing out of this, okay, you've got the other set of dice, and I can confirm. Let me just have a look there. Basically, these dice are the misprinted dice. They have the 11 instead of the 1 on them, but that's fine because, hey, if you look at the starter set, it's all about playing hobbits. And what hobbit wouldn't want a die that goes up to 11? That goes up to 11s is. Every good hobbit would want that. Just pile it away. And what we've got is this, which is the special edition of the One Ring second edition. And it says on the back, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. And now I'm not going to say that in the original Mordor script. Just get the knife into the cellophane so I can wrap. Okay. Just see a bit more. It's a fantastic looking book, and you open up, and we have essentially the new focus for the second edition, or the play area, which is Eriador. Which really something is going to open up. This rule book is going to open up in the back, just to show again. And then you've actually got that in more of a gamified feel as a hex map in the back. Just there we go. And inside we have more of the same artist as who does a lot of artwork for Free League Publishing, so worked on things like the Aliens role-playing game and also Symbaroum, which is where we really saw his artwork for the first time. So there we go. And then now the book itself is not in colour beyond that, apart from these art excerpts. That's slightly disappointing in comparison to the first edition, which obviously was was done in very earthy brown and green colours. But if we have a look, for example, just at the back, we've got details of Barnabas Butterbur, okay, and a scene from the Prancing Pony. I miss the full artwork, but the artwork itself in here is still great. So we have the Elves of Linden. So really good artwork, we have an introduction from Gandalf himself. Dear friend, I'm writing this in our usual table at the Prancing Pony, puffing at my pipe. According to the latest tidings I received, you are many miles away south, riding with the Horseshoes. I trust you brought a good supply of old Toby. If you didn't, you're going to miss your northern lowlands much more bitterly, I assure you. When I took up the pen, my intention was to elaborate on the reasons why I consoled you not to go to Gondor. Yet, you know what troubled me. The steward is a wise man and won't waste any time in putting your talents to good use, but his firstborn son is about your age. Denethor is valiant and proud. I feared that this might lead him to ignore your counsel, if not resent it. Then I remembered what I have to tell myself from time to time. The task I choose is to inspire the enemies of Sauron and to push them to action. I'm not here to rob them of their freedom of choice. They said even the wise cannot see all ends. So who am I, certainly not the wisest, to tell you what you should do? Only you can decide what to do with the time that is given to you. Please accept one word of advice, though, something that I have learned in more than one adventure. Do not face your challenges alone and choose your companions wisely. There are many brave souls among the various free peoples of the world who can join you in your struggle. Elves, dwarves and men, even the little folk of the Shire may prove useful. They certainly did prove useful to me. A good friend of mine discovered too late that there is more to these amazing creatures than you would credit them for. I hope you will not commit the same mistake. Yours in friendship, Gandalf. So you've got an introduction there from Gandalf himself, and that in there you have the roots of the game, in that you play members of the free peoples of the world back in an earlier age than you wouldn't recognise from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So it's before there, when Denethor was a young man. This is obviously after the time of the Hobbit and basically the Battle of the Five Armies, the defeat of Smaug, and occupation of the Lonely Mountain by the dwarves once again. This goes into, the year is 2965, so it moves it 20 years on from the 2945 starting point of the first edition for this game. So it's set during the Twilight of the Third Age, and there's a comparison here, discussion of the one in first edition here, acknowledgement there, something there. And it gives you into exploration of adventuring in the Third Age, the Shadow of the Past, and so on. The player heroes and the Lore Master and their jobs. So, the structure of the game. And how it's played. We're basically, you've got the adventuring phase where people go on actual adventures. You've got the fellowship phase at the end, tying it all together. So the adventuring phase, that's essentially is the series of scenes, connected to country in a wider narrative arc. So you might go out on a journey, face some orcs, guide a merchant across the country, and so on. But in the fellowship age, you might spend time basically as your sort of your sanctuary, your base of operations, and recover and invest some time there. And then we got to the action resolution, how it works. And how to read the dice. So it's really simple. You've got you're rolling a number of success dice and adding the totals up. Sixes get you more, particularly get you actuals. So you've got a target you've got to beat in terms of the number, and then you've got successes will gain you more benefit, and then you've got also the feat die, where you can roll a critical fumble with the Eye of Sauron, or a critical success with the roll of the Gandalf ring. Let me explain the conditions and the character sheet. Before we get onto the adventures themselves, and the adventures themselves are come from heroic cultures, we have a guide to typical languages and names and so on, and again fantastic artwork inside. So we begin. This is a bit. We begin with the Bardings. Basically, and then the dwarves of Durin's folk. Again, each page you've got a page, two-page spread of the description of what they are, accompanied by a really nice illustration there. Elves of Linden. The elves of Linden. So essentially, they are the elves, sort of like of the West. And I've got the Hobbit of the Shire as well, of course. So we've got the Men of Bree. And again, this is a bit more comprehensive necessarily than the first edition in its starting point. Obviously, the first edition focused upon the area west of the Misty Mountains. Also got the ranges of the north, west of the east of the Misty Mountains, Mirkwood, and so on. So those are the cultures you have. So there are no. This is a bit more. If you go back into the first edition, this is really talking about the books which dealt with. Basically Eriador, Bree, and the Last Lonely Home. Okay, I've forgotten his name. This is annoying. Let's have a look. At Rivendell. Okay, the Rivendell supplement. Okay, so. This is all explaining how to crack character, starting gear, callings. So callings, you have things like, these are different. We've got captain, champion, messenger, scholar. Messenger is new. Scholar, treasure hunter, and warden. So they're not traditional character classes as such. Starting gear. A nice illustration of the weapons, travelling gear, and then when you play, you form a company. I mean, like the Fellowship, not typically as big as Nessates, but big enough to survive. And it's possible things that sort of you have an adventuring career, and you may have an heir, and so on, and you adventure over the course of several years before essentially you retire and have a family. Skills that explain distinctive features of your characters, which might be faithful or merry, secretive, stern, swift, and so on. And it's all explaining the mechanics, accompanied by, again, this fantastic artwork. I mean, if you ever get a chance to look at the first edition, I do thoroughly recommend it. There's some fantastic content. The Tales of Wildlands forms got an excellent anthology, and it forms a great campaign. Or, of course, alternatively, The Darkening of Mirkwood sees the return of the Necromancer, and that's a great, almost Cthulhu-like campaign against the Shadow. All of the different cultures, heroic cultures, have their own virtues. So you've got a list of cultural virtues for each one. So, for example, let's have a look. Virtues of the hobbits have art of disappearing, brave at a pinch, small folk, short the mark. And so on. Virtues of the ranges of the north, and so on. Lots of things. And then it discusses how the adventuring phases work. And essentially, that's the core of the game: how you play the game. The other thing that's important is you've got a section on council and handling social encounters, and again, they need to be these almost. When these happen, they're sort of mixture of role-playing and procedural, and as much as sort of like the other aspect of travelling is, you have to overcome a resistance, and you can, because most people are recalcitrant in dealing with strangers. So, we also have over the journey as well. That's travel. And you make marching tests, ending the journey, and dealing with perilous locations. Again, hopefully not encountering one of those creatures. Again, the artwork in here is fantastic. And then we go to the Fellowship phase, explaining how it works. You might increase the skill, the years pass. You might heal a scar, gather rumours, raise an heir, recount a story, and then after, again, essentially that marks the passing of the year, and you have an adventure during the sort of like the season when you can travel because the weather is poor. There are other times of the year. So advice for the lore master as well, lots of advice for that. And it's discussing also the shadow, and the shadow is long and has a far reach and a deep history. It's not just more. It's not necessarily just Sauron and his servants. There are other forces there that are a threat. Some become his servant. Others don't. For example, here we've got a picture of Gollum. Just shows you how. And it's a really nice depiction, just how wretched he is. I'll just show you. There we go. So the artwork in here is great. And then every page, sort of, you've got set based every one of the potential photos has got its own 2-page spread. So full details on these. So you've got evil men, orcs, trolls, and more. Some of these have got 2 or 3 pages as well, and we've got the undead, Wolves of the Wild, and there are really, it's actually very few foes really in the book, but you don't need that many for a game like Lord of the Rings, because it's Lord of the Rings, for the One Ring, because it's not a game where you do a lot of adventuring per se. It's one adventure per year. Because it's a great undertaking. Then we actually the reach of the shadow. Obviously, the discussion of the Eye of Mordor and how far its gaze goes, and essentially how you will be affected by it. A discussion of the world. So we get on to actual Eriador itself, starting with the Shire. And the cat who is not ours is back. Wants my attention, so to bear with me. So we essentially go out from the Shire. If you want details on the Shire, there's basically that's really to be found in the starter set. Here we go look at Bree and the lands beyond, accompanied by these maps, which really feel period appropriate. They have an older feel to them. You've got encounters like ruins along the Greenway, the Barrow Downs, Weather Hills, the South Downs, and so on, the Etin Moors. And in some ways, this sort of like covers much of the detail which was in the Eriador book, but rewritten and presented for this as a starting area. And lastly, we've got a section on adventuring in Middle Earth. Section of when and where and what, sort of discussing when to do, basically where to set and when to set your adventures. And the appendix gives details on patrons like Balin, son of Fundin, even Bilbo Baggins is a patron, and others, Gandalf the Grey, so on. Landmarks there and back again, and then the Star of the Mist, which presumably is a starting adventure. Again, really accompanied by really nice sort of like illustrations that serve as maps. So this then is your essentially this is the special edition for the One Ring 2nd edition. It's a really lovely looking book. I think it has a much more different feel to it than the 1st edition. Almost as if it's a notebook that's being kept by Bilbo himself, as opposed to sort of like a more of a traditional role-playing game that was the 1st edition. And it's got a really fantastic look to it. I'm looking forward to playing this if I can find it, at some point. I'm hoping my friends will be interested too. Anyway, thank you once again for watching another unboxing of Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do click the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me with a box and a book or game, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a cat who's not ours and a nice hot cup of tea, then please do hit the subscribe button. Once again, thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing of the Nook. Bye for now.